Jochebed crouched in the suffocating shadows, pressing her trembling hand over her son's mouth to stifle a cry. Outside, the rhythmic thud of Egyptian soldiers' sandals echoed like a death knell against the mud brick walls. With the Pharaoh's cruel decree demanding every Hebrew boy be cast into the Nile, she knew she had to act now. Desperate hands wove papyrus, sealed tight with tar. Tucking the sleeping baby into the swaying reeds before retreating into the tall grass, moments later, the Pharaoh's daughter approached the water. She spotted the basket and pulled it from the current. Gazing at the child, she whispered, "This is one of the Hebrew babies." Yet, she cradled him close and named him Moses. Years passed, and Moses stood in the grand palace, draped in fine linen as a prince of Egypt. His heart yearned for his people. He saw a cruel overseer, lash a Hebrew. The rage of a lifetime boiled over. Moses lunged, struck the overseer, and buried the body in the shifting sand. Fearing for his life, as the secret spread, he fled the only home he knew, disappearing into the burning, shimmering heat of the Midian desert. Decades later, while herding sheep near the jagged peaks of Mount Horeb, he stopped in awe. A bush was engulfed in roaring flames, yet the leaves remained vibrant, green, and untouched. Fire's voice, "I've seen my people's woe, free them from Pharaoh." Moses returned to the heart of Egypt, his brother Aaron standing firm by his side. They stood before the golden throne, but Pharaoh slammed his hand on the armrest and shouted, "I will not let them go." Then the heavens broke. The first plague struck with terrifying force. The life-giving Nile turned to thick, stagnant red blood. Then came the frogs, the swarms of gnats, and the pestilence that claimed the livestock of the empire. Still, Pharaoh's heart remained as hard as stone. He refused to yield even as the land crumbled around him. It was only after the final, devastating plague, the death of every firstborn in Egypt, that the king finally broke. He pointed a trembling, weak finger toward the gates and commanded, "Leave." The Israelites fled into the night, their long-awaited journey to freedom finally beginning under the starlight. The Israelites fled toward the horizon, but by dawn, the air filled with the choking dust of Pharaoh's chariots. The king had changed his mind. Trapped against the vast, impassable Red Sea, the people cried out in absolute terror. Moses stepped forward and raised his wooden staff high above his head. A fierce, supernatural wind tore through the air, and the sea split apart, forming towering, impossible walls of water. The people walked across the dry, cracked seabed, while the waves stood like silent stone on either side. When the Egyptian chariots pursued them into the depths, Moses let his staff fall. The walls of water collapsed with a thunderous roar, swallowing the entire army in a single violent surge. The power of the empire was washed away, leaving only the sound of the crashing waves and the cries of the redeemed. 40 long years of wandering followed, under the harsh, unrelenting sun of the wilderness. Finally, an aged Moses reached the summit of Mount Nebo. He looked across the valley to the lush green hills of the Promised Land, a sight he had dreamed of for a lifetime. The divine voice spoke once more, a gentle but firm reminder, "You will not set foot there." At 120 years old, Moses sat down on the ancient stone peak. He closed his eyes, his work finally finished, and exhaled his final breath into the mountain air. Below, the people stood in a heavy, profound silence. Looking toward the horizon he had fought so hard to reach, he had led them to the doorstep of a new world, leaving behind a legacy that would echo through the ages forever.